There will be times in our lives when the gospel doesn't get 45 minutes. The theological treatise is out the door. The explanation of the Romans Road, too much for the moment. I still believe the best testimony in the history of time is 6 words. I was blind, now I see. What more is there?
I'm J Loren Norris with Storypower TV, and we have got a treat for you this episode. We have an evangelist from Dallas who's going to talk to us about what it's like to, well, what do we always talk about on this show? Who is Jesus to you, and why do I care? Not complicated stuff, but it's really deep. And if you've ever lived through that moment in life where you look back and you thought, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to give up. I'm going to quit. Life is not worth carrying on. I've made too many mistakes. Nobody can forgive me. Nobody loves me. I might as well just end it. Well, you need to sit back and hold on to your hat for a minute, because we're going to talk to somebody who understands what that journey is like, what life is like when it seems like it's better given up, and it's not. Help me welcome Evangelist Jillian Williams. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So tell me, who is Jesus to you?
Jesus is salvation. Jesus is a redeemer. Jesus is a restorer. Jesus is everything that can possibly mend you from everything that you went through to bring you into a personality and characteristic and identity outside of everything that you knew previously.
Now, you say that like somebody who's been through something.
Absolutely.
How do you know what you're talking about is true?
So the thing is that I faced a very turbulent childhood, as well as young adulthood as well. My family doesn't come from very much. I don't think that I've had an example from out of my family that actually had a purpose-driven life or did anything grand. And I fell into that, although I was kind of a golden child, went off to college and did some things that most people don't do in my family, but I still ended up falling into that cycle, which was very demonic. But I saw how Jesus snatched me up out of that, and he turned everything around.
So we met your son
Yes.
at an event not too long ago.
Absolutely.
Tell me how he came to be a part of your life.
So my son, I had him while I was in college. So I met his father my freshman orientation. So before I even landed permanently on the campus, I met him during my orientation. He was a sophomore at the time, or going into his sophomore year. And I wasn't necessarily interested in him, but he chased me for like that whole year or so. And I eventually gave in, and I became pregnant. And it was a very toxic relationship, but at the same time, he showed me a level of love that I hadn't experienced before, and his family had something that I hadn't seen before. His family was a lot more affluent than what mine was. You know, he didn't have to struggle for anything. Like if I didn't have any money to eat, just didn't eat. I couldn't call my family, but
Right.
he could, and so that was impressive to me. And his family was college educated and all of this type of thing. So I felt like, okay, I found somewhere I could belong, but at the same time, he was very toxic, and I believe that maybe I was too, in the sense that I didn't see what it was like to have a man around, I would say, probably, but it was just counterbalanced. Like, he didn't know how to treat me, and maybe I didn't know how to treat him at the same time. But in the same rate, I ended up becoming pregnant. He asked me to have the baby, and once the baby was here, he completely dropped the ball. So it was all left on me.
So he didn't have a problem being baby daddy, he just didn't want to be dad.
Yeah, it was crazy because we were engaged. So I had a ring on my finger once I had him and everything. We had a whole plan mapped out, and everything just completely shattered, and I was devastated. Yes.
So what did that mean for your college career?
So college, I tried to manage through, but it didn't work too well because of the fact that I had the baby in Austin, and I brought him back to Dallas, and I was steady going between Dallas and Austin, trying to navigate between motherhood and being a student, and his father wasn't doing the same. So it was turbulent in the sense of, I'm doing all of this extra stuff to take care of a child that you asked me to have. And then, knowing that I felt like that I was absent if I didn't come home as much as I could. My mother had the child, and it got to the point to where my grades were significantly failing, and someone led me to go to the campus college, the college counselor, and I felt as though that I would have the opportunity to possibly like
fix your grades.
Yes.
Maybe. Yeah.
without, you know, it was really deceitful that I felt like on my end, but really it wasn't. It was really divine for me to open my eyes to realize that the things that I was going through was not normal. And that's exactly what happened. The college counselor, she looked at me and she said, I don't know how you're still standing. You're going through so much as a young lady, like a lot of grown women. Like, you know, I was only like 21 at the time, or 21 at the time. And she was like, a lot of grown women wouldn't be able to handle the things that you're going through, and you're still standing. She told me that I needed to take the opportunity to go home to my child and to navigate away from my son's father and not worry about that, not worry about school at the time. But I needed to gravitate towards my child, because that's the thing that was hindering me from being able to do the things I needed to do as a student. And she made me realize, like, you have a whole lot of stuff on your plate that's really not normal.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it, but she opened my eyes. And from that point, I made a decision of, I can't be here. I have to move forward, and that's what I did. So I left Austin and left everything behind, left my son's father behind, left the college education behind to go home and to pursue being a mother to my child, and I ended up becoming a teacher's assistant.
Now, your son, like I said, we met him.
Yes.
He's not 35 years old. He's not 20 years old. He's 13 now. Is that right?
Right. Yes. Just
Very tall boy for 13. But 13 years ago, you would have been abnormal to be the 21-year-old mom in college who didn't choose to end her pregnancy.
True. So to be quite honest, there was a supplement that was something that you would use pre-abortion. I don't know if it's okay to say the name.
No, that's fine.
It's Plan B. So
Yeah,
I actually did take a Plan B with my son, and
God had another plan.
he's a miracle child. Very
So
much
your boy's a Plan C.
Yes.
See what my plan is.
Yes, absolutely. And he's very prophetic. I can see, you know, God allowed me to birth such a profound and prophetic child into this world for a specific reason. And although the upbringings have been turbulent, he watched me grow up while I was trying to raise him up at the same time. But there's no way in doubt that just listening to him and himself, I know that there was a purpose for all of it in regards to him.
So did you take that pill before or after baby daddy said, let's keep him?
So that was before. So he didn't know.
Oh, he didn't know. Okay.
Because he had already talked about wanting to have a child with me. And the thing is, I was steady taking Plan Bs, actually. I was going probably like every week.
Oh.
And he did not know.
Okay.
And with this one, it just...
Didn't work.
Yeah.
So were you on the pill as well?
No.
No. Just taking that after the effect.
Yes, because it was a situation to where it was kind of like, it just happened out of nowhere to where all of this talk started happening. I thought we had an agreement, and then he started speaking about other different things, and then I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. And I just was doing what I wanted to do on my own, and when he found out I was taking the Plan B, it's pretty turbulent, which was after I was probably about 4 months pregnant when he found a Plan B box in my room somewhere. Like, it doesn't
He's
matter.
like, it don't work in 4 months.
Exactly.
You're like, why are we arguing about this
Right.
now? So have you had that conversation with your son?
I believe, because I pretty much take my son everywhere when I need to minister, and the Lord has revealed to me that my testimony is a huge part of the ministry. It is the main part of my ministry.
Yeah.
So he hears.
It is the main part of all ministry.
Yes. He's heard different things, so he knows. Yes.
You know the name James Robinson?
No.
You should read any of his books. Just pick up any one of them. His mother tried to abort him, and the doctor tried and couldn't kill him.
Wow.
There's also a bishop. I'll remember his name in a minute. He was going to be a guest on the show, and things didn't work out, but he'll be back another time. Archer, Bishop Ron Archer. his mama was a crack whore, in his own words. And 5 different doctors tried to abort him.
Wow.
And they all failed.
It's amazing.
And he says, I was a trick baby. But the trick was on the devil.
Amen.
I was like,
Glorious.
that's a great play on words
It's
right there.
great,
Because
yes.
he's leading thousands now. And his impact is incredible, both in
Yes.
politics and in the church. So that's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
So where in this journey did you find this Jesus character?
Well, I was in jail. So,
Let's jump right ahead there.
but
I'm a single mom in college and I decided to go to jail instead.
But basically what happened is, to be honest, I grew up in church. I grew up in a very small Baptist church in Dallas, in South Dallas. And so I knew how to operate. Like, I knew that you had to have, stockings when you wore a dress. And I knew proper ways to speak in front of a crowd. Like, they had trained me to be mistress of ceremony from probably the age of 12. And I was leading the devotional with my grandfather, which was the head deacon.
Wow.
Deacons are very huge in Baptist churches. And so I was doing all of these things, so I knew how to navigate in church, but I didn't necessarily have a relationship with Jesus. And
But you knew the religious game and the political game.
knew it very well. Yeah. Tradition, yes. So when I went off to college and, went through all of the stuff that I went through, and I began to seek, I wanted to find him. But I was still going through so much turbulent things. And when I came home to Dallas, when I left Austin, which is where I went to school at, if I hadn't made that clear, I came home to Dallas. I became a teacher's assistant, and it got to the point to where I was seeking for Jesus, and he was actually calling me through the night. Like, I can remember waking up at 3 a.m. It was always 3 a.m. on the dot. Sometimes it would say 3:33. And I wasn't spiritual enough to know what that meant at the time. But I recognized, I was like, why? Every morning. And so.
For me, it's 4:10 a.m. I don't know why.
Wow. It's huge. So, but I didn't necessarily know why. And it got to the point to where I had got arrested. So I got arrested and I was able to get out.
Arrested for what?
DWI with child endangerment. So, but the thing is
So
that.
your baby was in the car?
Yes, he was in the car. But the thing is that it's a DWI, but it really should read a DUI because it wasn't alcohol. It was I was under the influence of prescription drugs, Xanax. So
For depression?
I wasn't taking it. I wasn't prescribed.
Oh, okay.
I was just taking it. That's just how I coped. And
Right.
so I went through that situation. So I came home and I had this halfway successful career as a teacher's assistant, and then I navigated back towards going to school, trying to finish my degree. And I was so traumatized by everything that had happened to me because here I am, I'm a golden child. I went off to college. I went to like one of the hugest colleges in the state, and and now it's like I'm coming home with a baby, so it's like I'm a laughing stock, even though I have a career that most people in my family won't have. But
Right.
it was still tormenting, and then the fact that I trusted this young man so much to have a child with him, and he completely turned into someone that I didn't know. Even his family praised me so much. Oh, he's made such a significant turn since he's met you. He's this, he's that. But once I got pregnant, they shunned me.
Well, apparently you were the one that drew him off track, right?
But I was the one that was helping him, right? So it was weird. But I couldn't understand it at the time because it was like everything was still going well for him. He was able to graduate on time. He was able to do all the things that he needed to do. But it was me who felt the butt of everything that happened. And this is what he asked of me.
Right.
And so all of that just weighed on me to the point to where I was coming into all of this level of different stuff that I had no business diving into. And I ended up getting arrested. And so that first time, so I've been arrested in amount of having a significant amount of time on my hand. The first time was maybe in 2014 or 15 maybe. And both of them was back to back. But the thing is that I had it to where they arrested me for this DWI with child endangerment. And I took it and I cried about it because I felt like that I could beat it. But once the judge signed off and, made it to where it was, I cried like a baby in the middle of the court. And they couldn't understand why. And I was thinking to myself, you're looking at me, it's like, a typical stereotype, but really I have a whole future ahead of me. I done been to school, I done did this, I did all of these different things, and now here I am labeled as something to where society wants me to be deemed as. And they couldn't understand where it came from, but at the same time, it was like I knew, something in me knew, your life is about to
That's
turn
what
a
I
whole
did.
nother-
That's not who I am.
Yes. and it took me down a whole nother different pathway in my life to where I should not have been exposed to. But, you know, it's all in the matter of the glory of God, because now I can testify. Now I have the voice. So many people have told me that I can be able to speak to women who have been prostitutes, which I have never been, but I have that level of humility to be able to, and I've slept with them. I've slept with them in the same cell, ate with them, you know, interacted with them and heard their stories, and it's not too much different than mine. It's just a matter of like the saving grace, like how much of a determination do you have that I'm not going to let this thing defeat me. And also I feel like that I have I've been told that I have the presence to be able to speak to someone very high in authority as well. So, you know, it's just a grace. So I used to wonder, why did I have to go through all of these different things when I know there's so many other young women that don't even have the notion to take care of their children or to do different things. And I was wondering, like, why do I have to go through such levels of struggle or, you know, recompense when I feel like I'm doing better than a whole lot of young women? Yes, I'm doing some things that I shouldn't be doing, but I'm here. I'm trying to stay focused, but yet I had a lot of things thrown at me. But I praise God that I was able to endure, and now I understand that it's bigger than me the whole time.
So we recently had a guest on the show who had quite the incredible past, was pregnant at 16, again at 17, then lost custody of both of her kids when they put her in jail for a meth addiction. Mm. But in her words, she chose to go to jail. Mm. When she went to court, she told the judge, "Put me in jail. It's the only chance I have to get out." Mm-hmm. It wasn't the fix until she found the Holy Spirit. That wasn't the fix for her life. It was still a mess. But losing custody of her kids, spending time in jail, was the reason she leads the ministry she leads today. Mm-hmm. Because God broke her heart and said, "You see these people. Mm-hmm. You relate to these people. You are these people."
Yes.
And it kind of changed everything. So was it in jail that you met Jesus?
Yes. I guess I never got it away from that. But yes, absolutely. So the first time I was incarcerated, it was a matter of, I was very angry. Both times I was very angry. But I was led to a faith-based dorm. And it was a bunch of classes, biblical classes, a lot of people coming in that were from the church and all of this type of stuff. And I avoided it, but I eventually navigated towards it to where all I did was read my Bible, and I gave my life up to Christ. I said, okay, this is it. But not long after I got home, after a significant amount of time, I ended up, diving back. And I wasn't as ratchet or as reckless as I was before, but I still wasn't right. And so
that would be a great book title. I wasn't ratchet, but I wasn't right.
Thank you for that. So, but I ended up diving back into it, and then it still wasn't as bad as before, but I still wasn't right. And it got to the point to where I ended up getting a probation violation that's outside of anything of that. Basically, I had some kind of ticket, some type of traffic violation, and the police officer took me to jail for that. And I begged him. I said, "Sir, you got to take my car, do whatever you need to do, but on my probation, I cannot go to jail for this ticket." And he was like, "It's just a ticket." And I was like, "No." So he took me to jail, and that violated my probation to the point to where, but my probation officer, she knew that I was doing well in the sense of that I was doing everything that I needed to do. I was working, I was, taking the classes, I was doing all this. She favored me. And she told me, "You have a warrant, but I can't." She said that I can't press on it because of whatever technical issue. And she said, "Go get with your lawyer and turn yourself in after you work it out." But I never turned myself in. And so I was on the run for like 3 or 4 years, and I finally got caught up in it, and I went to jail again. And after that time, I was placed in another faith-based dorm, and that was it. That just turned it over. I ended up becoming like the inmate chaplain.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So when you grew up in the church, did you have an encounter with Christ then, or
No.
just the religion?
Just the
the
religion.
practices?
Yes. No, I didn't know. And in fact, I could never figure out, what did it mean that he died for our sins? I could never figure that out. I would always ask that. What is that? And nobody could answer it for it. Like, how does him die for my sin? It did not make sense to me, and no one could ever no one could ever answer that for me. And it was not until I had these encounters with Jesus myself to where I realized, like, the sacrifice of the lamb, and how the fact that God himself wrapped himself up in the flesh to be a sacrifice that I would never be able to atone for. So it wasn't until I gained these relationships with him through all of my turbulent times and all of the backsliding and all of the extra stuff that I would do, to where I finally received the revelation of, this is who Jesus is to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what was the evidence in your life that Jesus had done something different in you?
So here's the thing. I would get a lot of visions and things, to be quite honest. And I didn't necessarily know what they were at first. I wasn't very spiritual. Even the night that I had got locked up, because I took one of the Xanax, I popped it in my mouth, and before I popped it in my mouth, I heard a voice in my ear, "Don't take that." And I was like, "What is that?" But I said, I took it anyway, and I ended up in jail that night. But I would never forget that. I would never forget that, right? But it's the fact that he visited me in so many ways on a profound and prophetic level, and then the fact that I would ask him certain questions while I was incarcerated, because I would read the Bible all the time, and I was, you start reading that once you get you get baptized in the Holy Spirit, you should be able to have a witness of it. And I was like, Lord, I need to know if I'm baptized in the Holy Spirit. And so all of a sudden, I woke up in the middle of the night while I was locked up. I was incarcerated, and I woke up in the middle of the night and started speaking in tongues. And I didn't know where it came from. But the thing is, no one else heard me. The whole dorm room, no one else heard me. So it was these encounters. But then the fact that when I got out, and my whole life took a whole pivotal change, towards like the people that I used to hang out with, I didn't have anything to do with them anymore. Everything, like even the grounds to where I was, socializing in, everything took a pivotal change. And I know that it couldn't have been anything but Jesus.
Now, was that a choice that you made, a discipline that you disciplined yourself? I'm not hanging out with those people anymore. I'm not going to those places. Or did it just happen and you look back and went, what just happened there?
Kind of both. But it really more was a matter of like significant life-changing events. Like I ended up being homeless for a period of time, and being homeless shifted me to one of my friend's houses, to where she stayed in the suburban area of Dallas. And from that point, I gravitated to certain churches, I gravitated to certain organizations, and it was like everything just took a shift. And I didn't realize it at the time, but now I can look back and see it.
Well, and wouldn't you agree, when you look all the way back on your life, the evidence has been clear that the family you grew up in, the religious circles, if you will, that you grew up in, the university, and the friends that you hung out with, and the man and his family, and then in and out of jail and that life season, and now even in the church, as you grow, those associations, those relationships, those circles of influence, as they continue to change, the who that you are continues to change.
It's true. It's very well true. And I've actually been able to notice that now. Like I have the revelation of that. And I noticed that as my circles change, then God is taking me to a higher level. So I'm very well aware of that. I wasn't at first, but now I am. So when I start noticing, like, okay, you don't deal with this set of people anymore, you're dealing with this set of people, it's because something in me has shifted.
Right.
Yes. So yes, I'm aware of that.
So how did you see your son moving in that? Because he's at that age right now where everybody in the world is trying to speak into his life. And, you could be a girl, you could be a boy, you could be a walrus, you could be whatever you want to, own your own life. Don't let your parents tell you that they don't know what they're talking about anyway. How's your relationship with him in a turbulent time like today?
I have to stay firm, extremely firm, because like you were saying, there's such a shift in like how these children operate and how they act. And it's like he's such a church boy, but once he gets to school, you wouldn't know it.
Right.
And I have to like remind
Circles.
him. Yes. I have to remind him of this, and I have to tell his teachers like he knows how to act. He knows how to behave. And if he doesn't, then you can very well call me. So and then also the fact that they have this thing to where it's like they want to be suburban gangsters. And I try to tell my son, like, you grew up in the suburbs. Like, maybe the younger part of your life, yes, it was different. But as being past 9 and up, you've been in the suburbs. So there are no reason for you to operate or act the way that you act. You don't have to put on this persona and all
That's
of this
not who you
stuff.
are.
Yes, exactly. So it's just a matter of continuing to confirm to him, God has created you to be a certain young man, to operate in a certain caliber. And I have to continuously reinforce that within him.
Right. So what's your advice? We got about 5 minutes left. What's your advice to young women in college, in their 20s, facing that unexpected pregnancy?
I would first say, don't do it. Don't do that. Don't put yourself in a position to where you are letting a young man to control what you're going through, because at the end of the day, it's your life to live and not his. And if you're both young, he's not who you think he is for the most part. We both have a lot of growing to do. There's a lot of changes that will shift. Now everybody's situation isn't like mine. Everybody, sometimes, the things will plan out as the way that they should, but that's not always the case. I would say somebody that's in college, a young lady that is in college, you need to study and focus on your books. Don't worry about a young man. Don't worry about feeding into what society says or anything like that. Take the opportunity that's in front of you and you grab it by the horns and you make sure that you don't let go of it. Allow what God has given you to be able to manifest in your life. That's what I have to say towards that. And if you do come into the situation to where you are pregnant, then of course, God doesn't want us to abort any child. So you need to have the child. But at the same time, you still have to make sure that you're not traumatized enough in a sense to where it's like you letting go of everything that God has for you.
And what would you say to someone who has found themselves ratchet? just living that life because, whether it's all they've ever known or it's the comfort zone. When I was talking to the young lady who helps people recover from meth addiction, she said, I've never met someone who was addicted who didn't want to be free. And I said, I find that hard to believe, but I've never been addicted to meth, so I wouldn't know the answer to that question. My addiction was pornography. But
my wretchedness came from trauma, and that's typically where it stems from always. Even if, now sometimes some people have a family of wretchedness, but my mother raised me in a certain level to where I didn't have to live that lifestyle. But most of the time, if you find yourself in situations to where you know that you're better than, or if you start dealing with people that you know that you normally wouldn't deal with, then it's typically you're facing a trauma that you need to be able to heal and grow from. And you find your ultimate healing through Jesus. So I would say that you would seek out Jesus, and you will seek out the comfort of Jesus, so you won't have to dive into the ways of the world to be able to comfort you in ways that's only going to bring you destruction.
So I ask you the hard question first, who is Jesus to you? So now the harder question, why should I care?
Why should I care who Jesus is?
Why should I care who Jesus is to you?
Because Jesus will turn it all around. Jesus will make your whole life completely, totally different. I never thought that I would be sitting in front of a camera testifying of how Jesus turned my life around. There's so many things that I've been through. I've faced homelessness. I've faced incarceration. I've faced the fact that, I wasn't there for my son like I needed to be because I've had to deal with those extra type of things. But then at the same time, the way that Jesus came in and he cleaned me up and he restored me to a whole nother greater level, that's in effect to where my whole thing is, if Jesus can save me, Jesus can save anybody. And I've seen multiple levels of defeat. Multiple levels of defeat. And if somebody can bounce back from the way that I've bounced back from all of that and to be able to do the things that I'm doing now, it's nothing but the grace of God. So that's why I say that you should care. Because if Jesus can turn somebody, a nobody like me, somebody who was like somebody that everybody had wrote off. Oh, she was up here, now she's down there, she's never going to do anything. And now he brought me back to a whole nother level to where it's like now I have a level of humility that I didn't have before. God can do it. If he can do it for me, if he can change my life around, he can do it for anybody.
Excellent. Very well said. Thank you,
Yes.
Jillian. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching StoryPower TV. I want to say, if you find yourself in that place where you're looking in the mirror and you're going, I've done some stupid things. I've done some ratchet things. I've done some things that there's nobody in the world that's proud of. God doesn't look at the things that you did. He's looking at you through the robe of righteousness that he put on his son after he allowed his own son to be killed, after he allowed his own son to be beaten to death and hung on a cross. And God's looking at you going, I'm not ashamed of you for what you did wrong. I love you because I made you. And if you can simply accept that truth, then forgiveness is yours to be had. If you think I'm crazy, just ask him if he loves you. You're going to be blown away by the answer. I'm J Loren Norris with StoryPower TV. Have a blessed day.